Alright, we have Min Min. Oh, well, my newest SCP video came out, which is 2246. Oh yeah, it's the literal ghost writer. Like an actual ghost was writing a book, but he's running out of ideas. A lot of his things that he writes down already exist. Okay, Min Min wrote. The last thing we read from Min Min was, I believe, 2232, if I see this correctly. 2232, which is the one that, yeah, that's the bird. That's, instead of sending a text, you're sending a bird who basically replicates what you wanted to say. But I do know that there's also a negative effect. I forgot what the negative effect was. It had something to do with like you growing size, if I recall correct. I might be recalling that wrong. It was definitely a high negative effect, even though the idea is pretty cool of a bird. I think it depends how far the bird had to travel that it impacts you negatively. Yeah, you know what I mean. She knows how to carry stuff, so she came home with a plate. I think it was made by someone's. It was made by someone near me. I keep forgetting the space. And someone near me. That does not help your case. It's cool that your cat can bring you plates. I think that's pretty cool. But the fact that your cat has brought you a plate of food and you're just eating it without questioning it, that's the part. That's the part where I'm like, what? It's like, so your cat just brings you a plate and you just decide like, well, I guess I will just eat it. What if it was meant for rats and has rat poison in it? Then what are you gonna do? You're just gonna be like, well, shit, I'm hungry anyway, so might as well, you know. Okay, so sorry, got a little bit distracted. But Min Min wrote the rainbow body. Well, this is my second helping, so you know what, as long as you don't have some, if you get food poisoning, then maybe this is a lesson for you. But if you don't get food poisoning, then it's all fine. The rainbow body. So this one is the one that, oh fuck me, is the one that Howard told me it's 11,000 words to read. We will be here for a while. Not only that, I need to check again what he said something extra with this as well. He did say 11k of that is from SCP-249A, which is an installment of a really long canon. No need to read the other parts, no tales needed. Mostly just sequel hooks or cameo backstories. Okay, so we can just read the SCP in itself, but yeah, it will take us a while. I don't have to tell you to grab yourself some snack, cats, because you clearly are munching on something already, even if it's maybe not meant for you to begin with, but oh well. To Dr. Davidson, your request has been approved. I've attached all we could salvage of Project Rainbow, but get something to drink at least that your cat did not bring you. Could salvage of Project Rainbow body below. As for the other Astros, it's all a bit of a mess at the moment. With all the moving we had to do since those days, I can't say I'm surprised. At any rate, I hope it's enough for you and your team to work with. Wishing you all the best. Sympathy 5, Archival Department, South Asian Division. P.S. Give my regards to Dr. K. She'll need it. So this is already something that's open. I also like that it says the coldest war here. View attachment SB2498 documentation. Okay, here we go. Item SB2498 neutralized, formerly Keto. Crack the neck. Stretch. Because this is gonna be a while. Special containment procedures. The former parapsychology wing of Andhra Pradesh University has been designated adjunct site 2498 for monitoring and communications purposes. In accordance with Foundation radiation exposure safety guidelines, on-site staff are not to be stationed within adjunct site 2498 for more than 240 hours a year. The room containing the remains of SCP-2498 is to remain sealed. It has been lined with lead plates to a thickness of at least 20 centimeters to minimize the risk of radiation exposure. Communication with SCP-2498 is to take place from within observational room B204A of the parapsychology wing. Due to the potential sensitive nature of information provided with SCP-2498, communication is only to be attempted by personnel with level 3 2498 clearance. Here we have a picture that says above ground portion of SCP-2498 containment site. Update: as of 1988, 8th 17th, SCP-2498 is currently neutralized. Due to the levels of gamma radiation that continue to be emitted by room B204B, the basement levels of adjunct site 2498 have been filled with concrete. Description: SCP-2498 is a former E-Class personnel Arjun Ramakrishna Rao, located in experimentation room B204B of adjunct site 2498. Rao was classified as SCP-2498 following complications during the course of his participation as a subject of Project Rainbow Body. Despite the cessation of most of his biological functions on 1988 2nd 12th, Rao continues to remain responsive and alert. SCP-2498 is believed to be capable of long-distance extrasensory perception and matter manipulation as a result of this event. The limits of this ability are currently unknown. Update: as of 1988, 8th 17th, SCP-2498 is currently neutralized. However, the room it was formerly contained in continues to emit gamma radiation at a rate of 90 MSV per hour. Containment procedures have been updated accordingly. View attachment: Project Rainbow Body documentation. Okay, here we go. God damn, what the hell is all... Dante from Devil May Cry 4. What the hell is this? Project Rainbow Body Clearance 3 brief. Rainbow Body was a mental conditioning regimen jointly developed by Foundation researchers and the Department of Parapsychology of Andhra Pradesh University in 1975 as part of the Rainbow Astra program. The purpose of the regimen was to develop remote viewing abilities in psychonautically adapt individuals for intelligence gathering purposes as part of the Foundation's contractual obligation with the Indian government during the Cold War. In its final development stage, and comprised administering a subject with a controlled dosage of scopolamine and a synthetic mescaline derivative under a combination of sensory deprivation, electroconvulsion therapy, and background exposure to Class 1 oral cognitive hazards. Successful execution of the Rainbow Body regimen causes subjects to experience extreme disorientation and vertigo to the point of physical and mental discomfort. Improperly conditioned subjects display signs of overwhelming psychological distress within 30 to 40 seconds. Prolonged exposure beyond this point risks lasting neurological damage. I want to use them, but I don't know what to do. Up to you. Less than 1 in 10 subjects eventually attain an anomalous psychological state. He have to refer to hydrate. Okay, more water. Probably necessary with how much we have to read today, right now especially. Thank you. An early Rainbow test subject attended by the redacted. God, what is even if this is Like, what do you think the original picture is meant to be? Like, unless this is like a staged picture just for the SCP alone. If this is actually from some sort of like experiment, I wonder what they did experiment here. Unsure. Less than 1 in 10 subjects eventually attain an anomalous psychological state, hereafter referred to as a viewing state. During the viewing state, movement of most of the subject's voluntary muscles will be inhibited and their senses will be greatly dulled. Their heart rate drastically increases while their breathing becomes quicker and shallower. Electroencephalogram, EEG, readings taken of the subject at this stage show increased theta wave activity and decreased alpha and beta waves. Despite this, subjects in this state remain fully conscious, being able to respond to verbal cues as well as perform slight physical movements like twitching their fingers or toes. Throughout this state, subjects are able to decouple their field of vision from their physical location. They gain the ability to perceive objects beyond their supposed point of view. Oh, okay, so they can look like either behind them or around corners, as well as access information previously unknown to them. Experimentation has proven that the range and strength of this ability correlates with the following factors. Actually, you know what? Last Surprise kind of sounds cool, a good idea as a song for this type of power to be able to, like, just see things. The subject having a hard prior training in forms of meditation, in particular traditional Hindu meditation. The subject ability to voluntarily enter a state of lucid dreaming. The subject resistance to hallucinogenic drugs. The number of times the subject has previously undergone the regimen. Approximately 2 in 5 participants fail to survive more than 3 executions of the regimen, expiring from various neurochemical complications or organ failure. The relatively high mortality rate led to the project being temporarily suspended in February 1985 under the investigation of the Ethics Committee. It was only restored following talks with the Overseer Council, who informed the committee of Rainbow Astra importance to negotiations with the Indian government. By May 1985, research had continued according to schedule on the condition of minimizing subject mortality and prioritizing wider subject recruitment from voluntary sources. In the beginning, Rainbow Body subjects were primarily D-class personnel from the South Asian experimental subject intake who had displayed high psychological aptitude and mental resilience during intake tests. Following the successful infiltration of the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, on 1980 by Foundation operatives, voluntary subjects on the Gondola Wish were incorporated into the program as well. This fat footnote. Gondola Wish was the first civilian military joint research program initiated by the DIA and the Stanford Research Institute in 1977. Its purpose was to investigate and reproduce the phenomenon of remote viewing for use in ANINT, anomalous intelligence, and unpsych, anomalous psychology operations. Following the breaking off from existing PSR, parascientific research, and PSD, parascientific deployment departments. After the 1985 investigation, the project began to recruit subjects from Foundation personnel with extensive experience in psychic phenomena, prioritizing those nearing the end of the employment term. I just need to like quickly stand up a little bit. Henry. Yeah. Just gotta feel like I need to, like, wake my body up. Don't fall out of my pocket now. Alright. This. Fucking my lab coat. View attachment RB-S003 subject file. Okay, personal file of Arjun Ramakrishna Rao. Subject designation RB-S003, Arjun Ramakrishna Rao, year of birth 1928, 4th, 19th. Participation status is voluntary. Originally posted as an esoteric containment specialist in MTF February 77, Rao was hastily transferred to the Foundation's South Asian operations following the total withdrawal of Foundation assets from the United Kingdom in 1965. After a period of time as Site-36 psychological training specialist, he was recruited into Project Rainbow Body in 1985 following the recommendation of his former colleagues. By then, he had amassed considerable experience in the fields of psychic research and mind-affecting phenomena, as well as a reputation for extraordinary mental fortitude. Rao immediately took a liking to the project upon his arrival and was dismayed at his sluggish rate of progress, going as far as to volunteer himself for accelerated acclimatization under guided supervision. He successfully entered the viewing state on his first attempt after a record 40 hours of acclimatization over the course of only a week, surpassing his "Fahr bis zum Horizont, immer weiter bleib niemals stehen." Surpassing his peers, Rao was able to provide concise descriptions of objects of up to 100 meters away, as well as identify voices and general mental states of individuals within that range. His proficiency in undergoing the procedure was highlighted and brought to the attention of Regional Command, who gave permission to train and deploy Rao under the Project Rainbow Body as a remote intelligence gathering operative. Throughout his following tests, Rao continuously defied expectations within 5 executions of Rainbow Body. He was able to project his field of perception to an unprecedented distance of 12 kilometers. Fucking, what do you elven eyes see? Den er ikke hoppe så heißen. Ra was also able to remain in the viewing state for almost 2 hours at a time with negligible impact to his physical health, though he reported mild dissociative episodes occurring up to 15 hours later. At his peak, Ra was able to identify and provide description of sights, sounds, and general mental states located up to 1,800 kilometers away, though he continued to claim that he could have gone further. Rao first entered active deployment in November 1987, where he provided remote intelligence support for MTF operations in Bengaluru during the containment of an SCP-584 outbreak. Rao continued to provide support for a variety of regional MTF operations until his classification as SCP-2498 in August 1988. So Rao is a really cool dude. I mean, he got some fucking powers, eh? View attachment incident 2498/198801212. Archive testimony from Franz Ziegler, that's a very German name right there, Rainbow Body head researcher dated 1989, 2nd 1st. The call came around 4 in the morning. It was Jo from the lab. She said they found Rao unconscious in the basement. At first I was confused. We didn't have any tests scheduled. It had only been less than 48 hours after the AVAX sim up. Then it hit me. I pulled on his shirt and hurried down to the lab as soon as I could. He had been strapped onto a cot when I arrived. From the adjacent room, I could see that he was wearing a hospital gown. Jo told me they found him naked. His skin, the gowns, and the sheets were drenched in sweat. His mouth opened and closed like that of a dead fish. Though his body was still, I could see a slight constant tremor that took through his meager frame. The worst of it were his eyes. They were wide open and swiveled widely in his sockets. Jo assured me he was unconscious, but I saw nothing but the walking, shivering husk of a man with a mad prayer on his lips. He was under as Jo claimed to be. He would have to be more awake. The sensation of raw, utter awareness that so gripped the subjects under the regimen is not something the official documentation mentioned at any length. I asked Jo how he was able to administer the procedure without any help. He didn't, she said. Her voice was low and grave. Divya and the night shift found him next to the machines, trembling like this. We think he's under, but we don't know how. Impossible. It's gotta be something else. Catalepsy, seizure, something in the last dose we overlooked. I scrambled for ideas, anything a cause. Subject 421, the one from the classified intake, she exhibited similar symptoms after her second run. It's not. EEG shows otherwise. Then of waves all the way through. He's gone under, further than the rest before. As she spoke, a sudden convulsion gripped Rao's body and sound escaped from his lips, as long, low moan like a cow's. We can still ease him out of it. Shock ejection, BZDs, LSP, the works, I asked, running down the list of contingencies in my mind. She shook her head. No go, she said. His body's rejecting everything we're giving him. What goes in just comes out. There's nothing left in there to process it. We snaked drips in and out of him, pumped him full of regulators and inhibitors, watched the drugs we gave him flow in and out of the tubes, and his body shook and shook the whole time. While his mouth mumbled animal phrases, we cycled all his blood out at one point or several. I tried to make some calls to see if we could involve other items, anything to save him, but the lines were silent. At one point I could have sworn he smiled. And his eyes the whole goddamn time, his eyes. His body was going haywire, poisoning itself with its own chemicals. There was nothing we could do. Eventually he stopped convulsing, his heart failed, then the EEG went silent. Inexplicably, his lungs continued to breathe for about 5 minutes after that. I remember his lifeless chest having dumply onto his shift, swelling and pulsing, sickeningly pulsing, continuing to pulse, imbibing and expelling dead air past his numbed lips against all reasons. He was pronounced dead by 9. By 10 we were getting calls from above, regional directors, ethics com, you name it. Playing with anomalous phenomena, we knew we'd be running the risk that the whole thing would come crashing about our heads. I'm surprised they let us keep going on for that long. But Rao had quite a reputation outside our circles, and after all we did, after all the risks we took, it only took his death from the hammer to come down on us. There was one other call from the archival department. For some reason, they seemed genuinely concerned about the future of our research. We briefed them over the phone, and they offered to schedule an appointment to take the project off our hands. With the amount of hot water we were in, we were more than eager to cooperate. Now, we didn't think much of it at the time, but we only found out much later that this missive had been relayed from a member of the Overseer Council himself. And once we had found that out, it had been too late for us. Of course, all that only happened after Rao's corpse began to speak. Ja, ich muss schon sagen, da sind wir tief in der Dreck drin, hä? Haben wir ein kleines bisschen ein Problem. Archive testimony from Jocasta Simmons, esoteric containment specialist, dated 1989, second. Franz wasn't close to Rao, don't get me wrong, he wasn't like Dr. Rajaputram in the slightest. It was a different story. I was stationed with him back in England, when the powers that been decided to leave the Brits to fend against Dark Peak and send us halfway around the world to the colonies. Rao wasn't opposed to the move. He was born near here, actually, not too far from our provisional research site at the university. He talked about it once or twice back then, in the lulls between the breaches. We were close back then, I like to think, or as close as anyone could ever be to Rao, really. I knew him, and he knew me, and back in England I was the most senior of the crew. So when it came to sending someone to talk to his corpse, it stood to reason I was the first, the most natural choice. We took all precautions with Rao. Standard first responder protocol, you know the drill as well as I do. The basement had been sealed off with plastic sheeting, and the ventilation circulated with makeshift tubing. Pressing against my left thigh was an amnestic auto-injector set to a remote trigger. Given our work, mine and Rao and a couple of others on the team, we had a few other goodies too. I spotted control sigils around the door frames, pocket autocasters set to purge, duct tape to the corners of the room, the back room stuff, you understand. Just for good measure, our mutual friend Divya had slipped a class 3 ward into my suit. Don't run all these by Ziegler and the rest, by the way. They haven't been cleared for those. Anyway, they took all the precautions, is what I'm saying. He was on the cot with the equipment as we left it. The tech boys had reassembled the disassociated rig piece by piece in the hopes of performing some arcane reverse engineering miracle, and all the medical gear that went with it had been brought in as well, along with a slew of other unfamiliarities. When I entered, I had to loosen my collar, as the sheer amount of equipment they dragged inside the room had turned into a small furnace. Rao himself appeared unaffected by all this, lying face up on the cot. His body did not sweat or move, though I could have sworn I saw his eyes track my every move as I entered the room. To hear a corpse speak is a disconcerting experience. His words were recirculated air. Before each sentence that he spoke, he would draw in breath, swelling his chest like one of those hand-powered accordion bellows, and his words would escape his lips in a single slow breath. His entire being was like this, a single deliberation, a single conscious effort on his part to even exist, much less speak to anyone at all. Singular, I think that's the right word, yes. It was that sheer singularity about him that made my every muscle tense in his presence. Never mind that I was his friend. In there he was singular, a singularity. So Rao turned his head in my direction as I walked in and drew in a breath. Wait. He wheezed. Then he took in another breath and said my name. I asked him if he could hear me or see me. Another breath rattling from his throat, he said that he could, but his sight was fading fast. I asked him why. He said that he moved upwards against instructions. I asked him why he did that. He said that he wanted to see. See what? I asked. Sky, he said. Shell. That was when you woke. You weren't able to proceed? No. Then what happened? Oh god. I passed through. I thought I had woken up. But I was still inside. Don't you see? I kept on going up. And it was the same sky after sky. Shells and shells. Our world is wrong. We were wrong. There's no revelation. Only introspection. I asked him what the difference between the two was. There was a hacking, almost mechanical cough. I think he was trying to laugh when I saw the muscles around his eyes twitch. He said, "You know, for what I've gone, I don't think there is any, not in this life." I asked him if he thought he was going to die. "Certainly," he said. "But Kokito echoes some." The time on my wrist sounded. I turned to leave. "Another thing," he said as he reached for the door. Rao turned his head towards the ceiling. We hadn't thought him capable of other movements save for speech, so his arms had not been secured. Slowly, the left arm raised until it pointed vertically upwards towards an unseen point above his head. And this part of Open Your Heart was open, like the Sonic Adventure 1 opening playing right now. The moment he's pointing, just like. And then he said 8 words, the words he found plastered over Kunal the day after, posted on every sign and every door. I remember them now, echoing in that empty voice after his behind my ears, exact as I heard them that day. The skies are cold. I am not alone. Back there, I didn't quite know what he had meant, but today, after what I've seen, they filled me with a certain kind of dread. Instant report 2498/19880210 On February 12th, shortly following the cessation of Arjun Ramakrishna Rao's biological functions, strange lights were sighted in 15 towns and cities in Andhra Pradesh and neighboring Karnataka state. Witnesses saw a chain of discs of white light descending from the sky and hover just below cloud level, unfolding itself from the inside out in the counterclockwise direction. It is unknown if reports of nausea due to the viewing the lights are a result of latent cognitohazardous effects or a natural consequence of perceiving three-dimensional projections of higher dimensional phenomena. And here we have a picture that says still frame from the Adaya footage at 12 seconds after midnight, 12 seconds, a 3-minute, 12 seconds on the clock, a 3-minute long tape perpetrating to be one of February 12th sightings. Let's look at this a little bit more closer, shall we? Almost looks like an eye. Like this part right here, like the eye of Sauron almost, but probably definitely not, eh? At first I saw the sun start to spin. It was pale. It did not hurt my eyes when I looked at it, though I felt my head spin as if it was part of the sun itself. Then the disk of the sun itself descended from above the clouds, and it shimmered into 13 pieces, still dull like the color of the moon, before our eyes. They spiraled down like a spear, twisting and turning, pushing the clouds aside in their wake. And I turned to my husband and whispered, "My God, the sky is broken." Written statement reported in the New Bombay Times dated February 13th, 1988. "The sky is falling down." Chicken Little. "The sky is falling." At approximately 2,300 hours, the last of the lights appeared above Hyderabad and struck the rooftop of the city hall. Pardon me. Setting it ablaze. Despite Foundation information and concealment efforts, the spreading of rumors of holy sightings drew an estimated 60,000 pilgrims from neighboring states into Hyderabad over the following 2 weeks. News of the event soon spread overseas and was reported in several Western tabloids. In the Adaya footage, and one can clearly see 3 crowns, signifying the 3 Magi before Jesus. The correspondent from which the photograph was sourced instead professes that the lights are in the shape of the seated Buddha. However, most of the witnesses, as our newspaper understands, saw in the light the threefold faces of the Timothy Bassett into visible form. Another interesting theory originates from one Catherine R. Gunsfeld, writing for the Californian Journal of Gnostic Truth. In the article, she put forth that the 3 lights in the Adaya footage resembled not divinity, but a wheel, and the pattern between them formed the spokes of the world. Excerpt from the Californian esoteric publication, A Discordian Directory, dated April 1st, 1988. My right eye is sensitive right now, I don't know why. On the same day in Kunul, raised letters were found appearing on 92 wall and door surfaces throughout the old city center. Text appeared as fragments in English as the phrases "the sky is cold and I'm not alone" and is quickly concealed or removed by embedded and Foundation cover-up crews. Rumors of the phenomenon nevertheless spread and drew some amount of attention in connection with the holy sightings before being denounced by a local authority as simple acts of vandalism. 7 hours following the events of February 12th, the body of Rao began to emit hazardous levels of radiation at up to 120 MSV/H, more than 80,000 times the recommended safe level. Oh shit. Personnel level were hastily evacuated from the premises and lead shielding was installed around the experimentation room. Inexplicably, all equipment inside the room remained operational throughout, showing no signs of being affected by the radiation. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, okay, the decision was officially made by Dr. Rajaputram to seal off the remains of Rao inside experimentation room B204B. Shortly after the room was sealed, Rao's voice began to play on the speaker of the monitoring equipment in neighboring observation room B204A. It was quickly established that Rao was able to communicate with personnel throughout the equipment and that he still maintained a degree of sentience. The decision was made shortly afterwards to classify Rao as SB-2498. Reattachment Incident 2498/1988-0817. Transcript of SB-2498 communication log dated 1988 2nd 14th. And here we have number 2498/101/198700214/0901. Length 2 minutes 5 seconds. Solve transcript. Arjun, you still there? It's me. It shows Amos. There's a sound of static. I know. Well, actually, should I still give him the ghostly voice, or should I give him like a? I'll give him like a more like a. I know. You said that you weren't alone. Stars, mountains, things move in the deep. Are they the reason for the anomalous phenomena? As an anchor steers the seafloor sands. And you are the anchor. I think I am the ship in the storm. There are other ships here. They feel my breath upon the waters and they wake. They are curious. So will you? Are these entities a threat to humanity or consensus normalcy? I cannot tell. They've always been here. If they are a threat, will you help us? Your question hides another. The Foundation strongly believes you to be capable of large-scale changes in the physical world, and our specialists or colleagues are inclined to believe that you've somehow achieved a certain esoteric significance. No, it's not. It's Simos. You got excited. You're like, betrayal. Why couldn't you just give me the man? Joe, you are reticent. Speak plainly. I can see. Arjun, you know as well as I do. Many of us here don't feel. Well, I don't feel that you are yourself anymore. I know. I understand. I am sorry, but there's just too much here to take in. One cannot do but change. Well, you know exactly what I think of you. You do not need to apologize for it. I hope not. In any case, you have my word that I am not a threat. I answer to the sky and the wheel. And as the wheel spins, I answer to the Foundation still. But will not be for long. What proof do you have of this continued allegiance? Again, you speak from script. I have only my word to give. Our Foundation will just have to believe. Just as it believes that the word of a friend can sway the mind of a god. Just as you believe that the world can keep on spinning even as we've seen reality bend 100 different ways in front of our eyes. I know you believe it too. And I wish you well. You will do best continuing to wish that. A bigger storm approaches. When? How? I will need you to do me a favor, Jocasta Simons. Oh, that's Jocasta. Well, I gave it the wrong voice. Suki like Japanese for love. That's cute. What kind of favor do I owe a god? SB2498 laughs. Jocasta, my friend. I will need you to be strong. End of transcript. Testimony from Redacted. Archival Department Manager Liaison to the Office of 055 dated 1991, 2nd to 15th. What kind of cat is Suki? What kind of cat you got? I used to have a wild black cat from Ibiza. She followed us around. Then we brought her to Spain, where we had 2 other wild cats, but they were more wild than she was. And then we brought the black cat with us to Switzerland. I got 4 cats. Okay, that's a lot of cats. Now that's a lot of cats. That's a lot of fish. Suki's the one that likes to go outside. Is Suki the one that brings you stuff? Because she loves you. Okay. No, we weren't planning on utilizing the Rainbow Body Project for anything beyond passive surveillance. The project team actually did write to us with those concerns at some point in the 70s. Dr. Rajaputram at one point did fear some kind of takeover from us when the war with Pakistan began, but we had to make that choice in Woodvale more than 20 years ago. He didn't know that, of course, but we did so then. At the time, we ended up pushing the button painfully and out of necessity, and we vowed never to do it again. Yes, she also gift rats. Of course she does. Of course. I really want to eat one of them. Are you okay? Are you like? Are you living like in a desert? Like what is this? Of course we had to pack it up. There was too much at stake. We agreed that we would only assist at the war efforts so far in exchange for our safety, but the nature of the deal changed when the nature of our assets changed. We didn't think that our involvement in India would be ending anytime soon. We trusted the IIF in the way that we thought they trusted us. But the proposal had already been submitted by the project head, and our contacts would come calling at the moment to take it over. What would they have done if they had discovered the key asset dead or transcended or whatever you want to call 2498? If we had let another party within the Foundation get their hands on the project before we did, suffice to say that things would have escalated a lot sooner. So in lieu of letting our own Foundation gut itself over an ethical mishap, 0505 made his decision and we backed him up on that. I live in an apartment around the forest, so no. Still a wild thing to be like, I want to cook a rat that your cat brought. I mean, at the end, who am I to judge? You do you. The consent of your committee is warranted. The situation, if I may say so myself, was completely right back then. Now I'm even more convinced that you potentially ate rat poisoned food. Because if there's rats around living around you, and you can't bring rats around. By 83, the Americans were flying into Peshawar every week. Reports were coming in from the Afghan front, soldiers charging through minefields on wings of air, bombs at 8 gunmetal and left nothing else untouched. You read the docs, seen the photos. We suspected salvaged Soviet paratech, but then the spears of light rained down on Savar in 85, and it became clear to us that action had to be taken, lest the world ended up with a second Iran. But there was nothing we had left to bargain with, nothing we had there to use. Lest we end up like them, 055 had said. I remember we toiled inwards and kept our eyes open. Though we could do nothing to prevent the horrors from unfolding, we could at least ensure our safety, and as long as we were safe, we would abide to our ethics and abide to our rules and wait out the storm around us. I remember when my land was putting poison because of raccoons. Well, you said raccoon instead of raccoons, but I know what you mean. So, you're not at all concerned that you potentially ate a meal that was poisonous because of the raccoons and rats? Well, you stopped. Okay. Gotcha. Don't know, question mark me. You ate food that you don't know where it came from. Your cat brought you random food and you ate it. Without any questioning it. You don't even know how old the food is. You just said it's dry. So you don't have to act like as if I'm the crazy one here. From all you know, that food could have been out there for like 3 days. So believe me when I say that everything we did was in the interest of containment and So believe me when I say that everything we did was in the interest of containment and nothing more. While there certainly were reasons to do so, we at the office of 0505 had absolutely nothing to do with the armed takeover of adjunct site 2498 on the 17th of August 1988. I live in an apartment, so someone near me probably had it. You mean like someone who lives in the apartment? Not somebody like... Again, because again, it would be wild if your cat just walked out and just went to... Gotcha. So you do know where it came from. You at least can assume that it... I'm gonna leave it be. I'm just gonna read. So believe me when I say that everything we did was in the interest of the claim. The 17th of August 1998. In the incidental report 2498/19880817 clearance free brief at 12:47 hours, surveillance footage of Andhra Pradesh University showed an unmarked white lorry pulling into the university compound. Its truck bed was covered with... We only reached the halfway point, by the way, of this SCP. Its truck bed was covered with black tarpaulin. In the footage, it parks out of sight behind the apartment of architecture before the tarpaulin slips off the truck bed and the footage flares to white. This anomaly affected both the university and foundation closed-circuit camera systems for the following 3 hours. At 12:49 hours, 5 men entered the Department of Parapsychology with a pushcart and requested access to the basement level to perform plumbing maintenance. The duty receptionist Sanvi Gupta confirmed that there had been a pipe leakage in the women's bathroom in the first basement and repairs had been scheduled for that day. Once the men had gained access to the first basement, they immediately proceeded to the women's bathroom with Gupta. They requested her to enter the bathrooms first to make sure it was empty before they commenced repairs. When her back was turned, one of the men rendered Gupta unconscious with an electronic stun gun. 2 of the 5 men that entered the bathroom similarly subdued Foundation nurse Siti Agarwal. They removed her access card as well as the tip of her left pointer finger. Ow! Gupta and Agarwal were then tied up and gagged before being placed in the janitor's storage cubicle. The men that entered the second basement level via the concealed doorway in the basement lobby using Agarwal's access card and severed fingertip. They were confronted by the 4 on-site security staff in the main hallway before the side compound. In the ensuing firefight, the men incapacitated 3 of the security staff and killed Agent Richard Parsons as he activated the on-site distress signal. Meanwhile, Site 36 received Parsons' distress signal and immediately moved to respond. Once inside adjunct Site 2498, the men conducted a sweep of the officers' staff quarters and experimental subject quarters, overpowering and restraining non-key personnel as they went. Key personnel Dr. Govind Rajaputram, Dr. Venus Ganeshan, almost like Ganesha, okay, and researcher Priyanka Acharya were brought to the site meeting room instead. Franz Ziegler and specialist Jocasta Samos were not among them, having initially evaded capture. Okay, they were smart. Voice recorders in observation room B204A were still functioning when 2 of the men entered at 13:36 hours. They appeared to be under the belief that SB-249A was some form of voice control remote weapon. No. You thought wrong. You assumed wrong. Attempted unsuccessfully to activate it. At 13:41 hours, the Rajaputram was brought into the observation room and was ordered to activate SB-2498 at gunpoint. He refused. At that point, SB-2498 complied to the men's demands. After communicating with the leader, the men restrained Dr. Rajaputram and left the premises on their vehicle. MTF Copper 17 soon arrived on the scene under the cover of local law enforcement and took over the situation. The men were known to have dispersed into 3 groups of 2 following the attack, abandoning the lorry approximately 2 kilometers from the university. The first group was apprehended at 13:56 hours by members of MTF Copper 16 and avoided capture by committing suicide with cyanide capsules. The second group was tracked to an apartment in the Port District, which was stormed by Copper 16 operatives at 13:40 58 hours. The attackers were shot and killed in the resultant shootout. Foundation intelligence later tracked the last group traveling to a remote location outside Visakhapatnam, Andhra Pradesh. Anomalous assets were deployed from Site 36, and destruction of the gateway. By the way, I'm sorry if I'm butchering all these names. Gateway vehicle was confirmed by 14 hours. However, the bodies of the 2 men were not found among the recovered wreckage. Where are you right now? Still like barely past the halfway point of 2498. Head researcher Ziegler and specialist Simos. Is it Simos? Or I guess Simos would make more sense. Or Simos. Simos? Simos. I'm going to say Simos. They sent a distress signal at 14:58 hours from a site evacuation safe house a short distance away from the junk site 2498. Ziegler surrendered himself to Foundation security forces and requested immediate medical assistance for Simos. Simos was airlifted to Site 36 and hospitalized, while Ziegler was brought into custody under suspicion of aiding the attack. SCP-2498 remained unresponsive following the incident. The Foundation recovery team that broke the seal on room B204B reported that it was devoid of both the rainbow body equipment and the body of Arjun Rao. Despite this, gamma radiation continued to be detected emanating from within the room of 100 MSV/H MSV per hour. Following revision of existing document, SCP-2498 was reclassified as neutralized. View attachment level 3/2498 additional documentation. Standard Dream Report 66-/Y-2498 reconstructed. Form 66-Y Standard Dream Report. Personnel Specialist Jocasta Simos. Estimated degree of recall 9%. Likelihood of actionable intelligence high, unknown. God, I don't know. Okay, since I changed Jocasta's voice before, I'm going to keep it with the second voice. Description. I would like to report a series of dreams I believe I received from SCP-2498. Altogether, I cannot remember the number of them, but I'm sure that the last of them came last night. They came in 3 forms. The first happened around the beginning of July and continued for roughly 2 weeks. In those dreams, I was alone in a large gray space with lights set into the ceiling, just like in the office. I had those dreams even at home, when I was on rest. There was a murky quality to the dream. A vast faint sound from a distance, like the chanting of a prayer. Whenever I tried to move towards it, however, I found myself blocked by a shadow. There was a kind of great distance between me and everything else, stopping me from breaking through, like I had myself receded into a point inside my chest. When I awoke, I had a faint memory of an old friend calling and kind of ringing in my ears. I did not report these dreams due to their highly indefinite nature. Instead, I started visiting SCP-2498 on a regular basis, under the suspicion that I was responsible for them. But it grew gradually incoherent and I could not talk to him at all without breaking down into tears. I stopped visiting SCP-2498 after a while when Ziegler persuaded me not to. I went with it, because to me it was clear that SCP-2498 could not provide any more answers in person. Instead, I tried to pay more attention to the dreams. In mid-July, they began to change into something with a more recognizable shape. My vision in the dreams began to clear, and it felt so to me that I was actually on the inside of some kind of bell, looking outwards. I began to understand why I had difficulty moving in any direction, because the dream only had 2, outside and in. One night, I finally worked up the courage to look away from the outside and found myself gazing at the SCP-2498. He was in the shadow that had blocked me from within, and I was inside his mind, looking out. SCP-2498 did not look like he was in real life. While he was still both the shape of a man in the dream bell, it was not the intubated, wasted figure that I last saw on the bed in the room. He was a whole man again, and his body was covered with eyes. Ugh! And new senses awoke within me. I perceived that his body also shimmered like the evening sky. I used the word perceive here deliberately, because it was only then when my senses fully came into being that I began to have an understanding of what it had meant for the project's participant to see. I understood then as well what SCP-2498 had meant back then. when I was first sent to talk with the corpse. One did not see in the eyes of the rainbow body, one merely understood. Gradually, the shapes outside became more definite and more chaotic. As the grey turned into a blur of movement, in freeze frames or lightning speed like a film gone mad. Lights turned into dark, turned into shapes, and the shapes spun, and the grey spun with all colors at once. I wanted to scream with terror. Even worse were the moments of silence when long shadows would cross the cornucopia, swimming through the deep, surfacing and unsurfacing from the world at will. It connotated to me the sudden, fearful notion that this was not all. There was other realms, other seas, like Rao had said of the skies beyond skies and the shell beyond shells. I was looking at the mountains that he spoke of. I was seeing what SCP-249A was seeing. Held his complete knowledge of all things, but I did not hold his comprehension. The peace he seemed to hold within the bell, and I think I would have gone mad if I were not for the filter of the dream upon my rational mind. I experienced that type of dream, that nightmare, for a long, long time, sitting within his mind for what it felt like weeks, watching and unable to look away. Sometimes I woke in tears. Slowly, I learned to accept the chaos and subsume part of it as my own. The shadow no longer prevented me from moving out. All I needed was to focus inwards and search his mind, and I could attempt remotely the art of seeing as he saw, knowing as he knew. Still in my mind, I managed to recognize, or thought I did, familiar faces and histories, most of them my own. I perceived my many possible futures and even greater multitude of pasts, though I couldn't read them for they were so fast. Growingly, I also felt something in the space reaching out towards me as I reached towards my visions. It was like a smell of something long forgotten, tinged with smell of death. I recognized that sensation full only in the third and final dream sequence, which happened last night. Here's a dream. I opened my eyes to find that I was myself, and I was also SCP-2498. I no longer looked through his eyes, for they were mine as well. In his voice, I asked SCP-2498 if he had a message to give. In my voice, SCP-2498 answered. He spoke to me in words that came all at once, in one sound like rolling waves or unfurling cloth, whose meaning I only grasped when I awoke. In total, he said 4 words for me that night. The first word that he said had the meaning of, listen very carefully. In the best of all worlds, I am twice dead. The second word that he said was a series of signs or signals, through which I would know that he would die. He would die that day. There were knocks on the door, the kiss on the cheek, and the signs of the bird. The third word that he said had the meaning of, it is by your hand that I will die a second death. The last word that he said contained instructions as to how. Through his body, I protested, thrashing against the dream's veil. Through his mouth, I questioned, why me? Why this? I think I wept through his eyes too. Then I awoke and immediately understood. Those concludes the report of my dreams. The document above is transcribed from an unsubmitted 66-Y form found in a drawer of Specialist Simo's desk. The document was handwritten and the ink was heavily smeared with numerous corrections. In her subsequent testimony, Specialist Simons claimed that she had intended to submit the document to Dr. Rajaputram. However, she later admitted she did not believe that relaying the contents of her dreams to her superiors would have changed the outcome of future events. Cyberpathy 5 Archival Department. Archive testimony from Franz Ziegler, Rainbow Body, head researcher, dated 1989, second verse. Yes, it was Jocasta that started having the dreams first. For her, they started in July, though she did not report it to anybody at that time. I think she was worried about being separated from Rao. Rao had taken up too much of her energy, too much of her time. She must have spent whole days in the observation room, even as the rest of us scrambled to have the place prepped for the handover to the brass. The experiment had stopped and all but 3 of the subjects had been cleared and returned to general circulation. Yet she still talked to Rao. She was growing tired and afraid. After they write her up for excessive cognitive hazard exposure or some such and sent her away. All she wanted was to be here with him, to get answers from him. Eventually it was too much and she stopped at my behest. It clearly was too much on her. I went in there once or twice and talked with him for a given measure of talk. It's all on the record. I remember leaving from those sessions feeling greatly unsettled, as if I had glimpsed a scene of a great tragedy. I do not know what Jo saw in her interactions with him that made her go back again and again. I tried listening to the tapes once as a head researcher. I had the authority to do so, but as soon as I played them, it felt like I was on the cusp of committing something profane, like eavesdropping on a confessional. Then I started having the dreams too. Long, plunging nightmares of light and sound, sending me awake with a faint aftertaste of sweetness on my lips, awake with the feeling of the familiar beside the divine. That morning, I moved to my office and dug out 2 copies of the standard dream report. On the first, I found my pen trembling above the third blank, paralyzed with forgetfulness. The second I tore and shred. I was convinced the dream was a message, an omen of things to come, but it was not one that was meant for me. I believed its intention, though I did not understand its content. I believed it without seeking further verification. On this point, I admit my lack of discernment, but belief is a stronger force than any of us realize. Sir, you've been here long enough to know that as well as I do. We are who we are because we believe. When Jo told me about her dreams and that it was of utmost importance that we leave the site before noon, I did not disbelieve her. After breakfast, we left on foot without telling anyone. I asked her if we were escaping some terrible catastrophe. She said that Rao had promised her nobody would be hurt. She also asked if there was a safe place that we could hide in until the events foretold in her dreams had come to pass. I told her about the safe house down at Redacted. I remember the place from the initial briefing for the project. They stored backup equipment and supplies here in the eventuality of the site being compromised. We went in one time at a time, she first and then I second. Inside she went straight for the equipment closet and strung out a set of electrodes. She turned to me and said, "Hook me up, there's no more time to waste." That's a test. That's a test set. You haven't been conditioned. It's not going to work, I told her. She pushed the set into my hands. Then we improvised. Besides, I've read the papers. This is all we need. The rest is just supplementary. My rational mind believed what she was intending to be impossible. I knew from my early days at the project that the procedure would just as likely fail as it was to kill her entirely. But we both seen the dreams, and in the light and heat of the dream that I remember, something had reached out and touched my conscious mind as if to say, "This is the only way." I looked into her eyes and saw that she believed that too. We went ahead. In the cupboard, I found a trip feed, a waterproof cassette player with a bright yellow cognitohazard triangle emblazoned on it, and an early version of the electrotherapy machine we used for the first tests. Inside the ice compartment of the freezer were 5 bags of the serum. There was an untouched tank in the bathroom with the packets of salt still sealed. Jo set it up while I went to work programming the machines from memory. It wasn't hard working from the presets, and I found myself recreating almost precisely the very pattern on the oscilloscopes that had surely been burned into my eyes from the long nights of lab work. Any further adjustment would have been impromptu, but that something steered again, and reassured me of my path. From the bathroom, I heard the sound of the tank's filtration system running. There was a sound of splashing as Jo tested the waters. "It's good to go," she called. We had to patch the throats and drip system through some extension cables so that they could reach the bathroom. I had experience only with the bioelectrical just happened. I had experience with only the bioelectrical part of the procedure. Jo intubated herself, wincing as the warm saline entered her veins. Just one more thing, she said, producing a marker from her pocket. On the hatch of the tank, she inscribed a twirling 8-sided pictogram in a single careful notion that ended with both ends entwined in its center. Now we begin. I looked away as she stripped and placed the electrode helmet on her head. The tank was custom made with speakers embedded in the sides. All I needed to do was to play from my cassette, cue the drip and regulate the pattern. She entered the tank and carefully shut the hatch. I turned the switch on the drip machine and it emitted a beep, signaling the switch from saline to serum. I knocked twice on the tank, signaling that it had begun. Godspeed came her muffled voice from beneath the hatch. There was no more fear. When the thrashing began, I found myself stroking the tank and whispering the words I did back then. Simple words of soothing and encouragement. You're strong. You hang in there. You're the best of the best. You handle this, I believe. The splashing subsided. Her vitals remained strong. I attenuated the pattern, adjusted the last of the drip feed and sent her under. In reality, we were two rogue employees swept under the dream fervor of an anomaly. But in that moment, surrounded by the hum of the machinery, I felt every bit in control of my rational thoughts. Before my eyes, tether waves began to dance on the oscilloscope screen. Against all odds, I had succeeded, though Jo still had a long way to go. Archive testimony from Jocasta Simos, esoteric containment specialist, dated 1989, 8th, 2nd. Let me just mark this because I want to see how much more there is. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. I wasn't prepared to tell this part of my story before today. Now it's almost been a year. I think it's about time the truth came out. The truth came to light. In the tub I went under, just like Rao had shown me. I'd never been subject to the procedure before, but I recognized its sensation from the reaction of those that had gone before me. In the tank, it was like my entire body had dissipated into a million pieces, floating further and further apart from each other, until the feeling of the drips and attachments had faded into the background of the tape track with its ambient binaurals around my ears. Eventually, the binaurals themselves ceased to be audible to me. I began to panic when I could not feel my heart beating. The sensation of death encroached all around me. I was alone in the universe. I was me. I was no longer me. And then panic turned to clarity. This was exactly how it felt to dream those dreams back in July. Just thinking about it now makes me shiver. Now I understood how those first subjects felt when they were under before the conditioning process had been defined. I had the familiarity of my dreams and my experiences with near-ego death to prepare for me for what I saw. But they hadn't. God, it must have driven them mad. I suppose I was at this point at the procedure that the subject were introduced to the instructions. I was aware of the idea of sounds from outside, but I did not hear them with my ears. I knew that there would be a tap dripping behind me, or the hum of the drip feed on my 2 o'clock, but the thought just didn't occur to me to see them. Left unprimed, my mind wandered in a faint copy of my dreamscape, where dim shadows danced amidst vague memories of places I knew. I drifted for what felt like eternity, until I became aware of a hive of shadows, a mass of swirling shapes that I soon recognized as the shadows that had terrified me in the dream. Somehow they were not as terrifying as the dreams themselves. Maybe because I was only here as a guest, and not its resident and the prime target. They had congregated around a gate of sorts, looking like the arched iris of a massive eye. Inside that gate there was another space, a space of something as clear and lucid as plain water, where I felt no secrets could lie. I approached, and let me pass through. Then I saw it. In the stillness, the shower bell framed in the vague memories of the sides, fluorescent and containing within it his body, Rao's body, towering before my vision like an ocean. He was so much more massive in person. As I stared, a portion of his eyes swiveled and regarded me, fixing me in their blinding glare. I screamed so loud that I screamed so loud then I thought I would wake from the trance, but something had held me within the bell. I did not wake. After a while, I felt no fear, only the recognizable dream sensation of familiarity mixed with death. Seeing him in full from the outside, I now truly knew that it was him. There was no question about it. We've been on missions in England before, runs with the paranormal that left us half mad with fear. We all been forged in the fire, and we knew the shapes of each other's soul. This was him. He formed the clearness on the bell to keep himself safe, but it was him, alright. The moment I understood that, my vision morphed. I was now standing at his height, looking into his eyes, the eyes that he had as a man. There were no secrets here. When he spoke in the language that he and I immediately understood, unencumbered by the distance of the dream. I sounded like 1,000 silk sheets being unfurled. He said, smiling, happy as a lark and plain as day, Joe, I'm so glad you finally came. I embraced him, overjoyed in the same language as his. I said, I've missed you so much. I don't want to see you go. Surprisingly, the words flowed as easily from my tongue as they did from his. I asked him if he was in pain, if he had been in pain. He shook his head and told me that he was not in pain, as I knew it, but he felt immense, growingly wrapped in both rapture and fear. The rapture of the knowledge and power he possessed, and the fear that this power had instilled in him. He gestured to the hive of shadows outside. They shifted as if in response, and their flurry around the bell grew slightly quicker. I felt a sensation of what passed for eyes running over my skin. My presence in this realm had clearly not gone unnoticed. He said, I fear the fates, but I also fear the powers greater and more subtle than the fates. Every movement I make sends a ripple that draws both of them ever closer to me. Rao withdrew from the embrace and produced a knife in his hand, which he pressed into mine. It was black as pitch, and its edge twinkled with what I thought were stars. I told him that I couldn't do it, that knowing it had to be done would not make doing it any easier. I insisted there had to be other ways, better ways, in which this could have ended. We were not subsumed to fate. He shook his head and bade me to calm down. Slowly, Rao reached towards my eyes and pressed my lids shut with his fingers of his free hand. They burned, and in that moment I ceased to be blind, because I had seen the wheel of the world. And one spoke. I saw men in black execute my superiors and colleagues one by one, as a disembodied voice in the basement pleaded with them to stop. Another mere steps in parallel with the first. A strange man is tied to a strange machine and made to bark into the darkness, wherein he begs for calamities to happen. In accordance, 27 silos explode, taking with them 100,000 lives. A ray of light pierced the Siachen glacier, vaporizing all life within 20 kilometers. When the souls is forged a bloody peace. Yet another spoke, this peace does not come. Panic gives rise to not to surrender, but a sealed resolve. A missile is ready from a ship in the west, and is cleaved into two by an unseen hand minutes before launch. In the waves of escalation and retaliation that follow, Vaults on both sides are opened. Horrors are unleashed. In the flames of what remains, slumbering giant rose for war. In the darkest parts of the wheel, shapes like castles appear in the sky. The God-man, unable to die, watches helplessly from his throne as the beasts he drew forth consume the collective sanity of humanity. There's a storm, and a great flood, and a rending of the earth. Soon, nothing else remains. The world I had left behind was the axle. All I had to do was spin. Rao opened my eyes, and the last thing he ever said to me was, "You see but a fragment of what I see, and now you know what must be done." And I, in my blindness, understood. "I love you," I said, and drew the knife across his throat. He fell into my arms. I dropped the knife. I felt an immediate sensation in my heart, as if the knife had stabbed into my own chest. In reflex, I cradled him and knelt, begged for forgiveness, caressed his still features as if I could mold life back into his very muscles, his very bones. But there was no turning back. The deed has been done. It was bloodless deed. He did not bleed. because there was no blood left to bleed, only the corpse of a god. I killed him, the most beautiful soul I ever known, and I killed him with my own hands. God. I returned to the world of the living in a half-dead state. Secretly surrendered ourselves to the side, and I spent 3 days in the medically assisted coma as the medical staff flushed my system clean. I woke up cuffed to my bed. I'm sure the rest is recent history. Yes, I still have dreams. Other dreams. Dreams of me killing Rao. Dreams of Rao killing the world. Above all is a dream. No, the nightmare of the wheel itself. Turning endlessly with my life bound to its spokes. Crucified and inseparable. We're all bound to the spokes. Every single one of us. It's because we had to be. We have to be. It's because there's no other way. Just thank whatever powers that remain that it's not our place to know the manner of our bindings, or the other bindings of our possible choosing, because Rao did, and we paid the price for it. I shall declare nothing further. If the committee finds me guilty, I welcome the verdict with open arms. Ziegler turned us in because he knew we had done nothing wrong, and I assure you, sirs and madam, that I will continue believing in that until the day I die. I hope this has been sufficient. I have nothing more to say. View attachment, extranormal event, B38261 related documentation. Archive testimony from redacted. Archival Department Manager liaison to the Office of 055, dated 1991, 2nd 15th. It was Indian intelligence that did us in. The research and analysis wing, an armed takeover that magnitude and severity, where else could it have been? While the contents and exact location of our sites were only known to our contacts within the Indian administration, the fact that the sites existed at all would have been equivalent of common knowledge to Indian intelligence. If they had wanted to find us, it would have been a simple matter of tracing logistics and extrapolating from maps, but we were assured that they were under the direct orders from the director Saxena himself not to interfere with our operations. Until then, they had no incentive to do so. Then after Saxena came S.E. Joshi and Anand Verma, and that's when our trouble started. It was clear as day that we could not have kept SB-2498 a secret from them forever. 055 promised delivery to the Indians in exchange for safe haven. But they must have known as well as he did that the project would not bear fruit beyond what he already suspected. R and AW was capable of. Regardless of aiding scientific research for non-destructive purposes fell within the ethical guidelines of the Overseer Council. The creation of SB-2498 threw all of that out the window. When it was obvious to us that the project could not continue as it did, we consolidated our records and fed our partners fabrications to keep them at bay. But Anand Verma was not a gullible man. He must have known through other means, and that was when he decided to strike. The attackers were far from incompetent. I must once again stress the level of preparation and covert knowledge it took to plan and act like this. Firstly, they had known the nature of the site's content, if only vaguely. They had known of its location and the movement of its key personnel. They had known of the layout of the site's rooms. To all of that, I also add the element of luck. A mere week or two later, and we had finished moving the project out of the university entirely. Just as they were far from incompetent, so were we far from prepared. We had contingencies in place for that day, and those contingencies were executed with flawless aplomb. Never heard that word before, but they simply weren't good enough. By the mid-1970s, our covert infrastructure had the capacity to send a reaction force to any site in distress within the hour, track the assailant, but then put them in the bag and retrieve or neutralize any objects they might have taken. What we didn't count on was that in the case of a junk site 2498, the men didn't matter. All that matters was the plan. All they needed was half an hour to crash that plane with no survivors. Oh god. Extranormal event report B38261, date of occurrence 1988, 8th, 17th, Bahawalpur, Punjab region, Pakistan. After witnessing a demonstration of M1 Abrams tanks in Bahawalpur, Pakistan. General Muhammad Zia al-Haq boarded a Hercules C-130B aircraft to return to Islamabad. On board this flight were 37 other passengers, including those associates General Akhtar Abdur Rahman and Brigadier Siddique Sadiq, Arnold Louis Rafael, the United States ambassador to Pakistan, and General Herbert M. Wason, the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military effort in Pakistan. The flight departed from Bahawalpur airport at 13:35 hours. And here we have a picture that says crash site of the Hercules C-130B following event. Ugh. At 13:40 hours, the plane was enveloped in a column of light originating from the sun and remained completely motionless for 2 minutes, at which the wings of the plane detached and the fuselage fell to the ground. Still enveloped within the column of light, no human remains were ever found at the crash site. All passengers aboard were presumed killed. Follow-up actions taken. Though Foundation agents were unable to edit the memories of all witnesses involved, they were able to acquire and suppress all filmed records of the incident. The incident is publicized by international news sources as a anomalous plane crash undergoing investigation. Neither local nor international media ever reported the true nature of the incident, suggesting the presence of a parallel cover-up. Last one. Archive testimony from Redacted. Archival Department Manager, license to the Office of 055, dated 1991, 2nd, 15th. Though the Geneva Accords were signed in April, Pakistan still maintained a sizable stockpile of parascientific weapons courtesy of the United States, eager to arm the Allies against the Soviets up north. General Zia's death changed all of that. The change of regime and souring of U.S.-Pakistani ties after the crash led to the eventual withdrawal of the 388th Independent Special Company from Peshawar. Existing parascientific weapons soon proved difficult to maintain without outside expertise. Research hit a dead end. By the end of the following year, Pakistan's forays into weaponizing extranormal phenomena had all but ceased. The Foundation moved in, just like we had with India, small discrete sites under the chemical plants and garment factories and cleaned up the mess. The remaining stockpiles of anomalous assets were eventually seized and destroyed. It was not an easy ride. Shortly after the plane went down, our covert sources immediately picked up on mention of the incident within NATO and Soviet intelligence. I tell you now that our Foundation had never been close to complete confrontation with a military force than that on one point in the war. Reagan was furious. Admiral Kelso was chomping at the bit. We at the office feared a repeat of El Dorado Canyon, even if India would be harder to bomb than a Libyan tent. But we had no idea when or how they would strike. We had no clue. To make matters worse, we had just learned through our department channel that the attack on 2498 had rendered it all but neutralized. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to us, the USS Vincennes, no idea, had received direct orders from the Central Command to depart from the Andamans and encroach into Indian water. For 15 excruciating minutes in the Bay of Bengal, there were 4 Harpoon RGM-84 anti-ship missiles locked straight into the INS Virat, with 1,000 men on board. God only knows what might have happened if they had armed and fired. It is nothing short of a miracle that Captain Rogers and his men made the choice that they did that day. Never in my career in this office had it been more apparent that discretion above all things is the greater part of the valor than all others combined. For most of the world, the war ended at Malta, where an embittered Bush made peace with wary Gorbachev, vowing never again to repeat the strategies that had so defined the recent past. For us, the war ended in Cairo, as directors Stilwell and actors negotiated our eventual return from exile. To identify the individual factors that led to these successes for peace is a business that I will leave to the historians. of the New Age. Regardless, it cannot be doubted that the events of the time, the death of General Zaire, the near destruction of the Virat, the bitter conclusion of the Afghan War, the Group P activation of 1984, oh, that's gone, had presented the world with a general malaise that deeply pervaded both sides of the conflict. The world had seen leaders at their best, but overwhelmingly also had their worst. Parascientific weaponry had laid bare to mankind the terror that lay at the heart of war. Faced with its sins, war-fatigued America had no choice but to back down. Perhaps the incidents in India had something to do with it. Speaking as one of the few who had had the privilege of the regional theater's front row seat, I like to think that it had. Do I believe the testimony of Jocasta Simos? I don't know if I do, at least in its entirety. But I believe that she acted in good faith. Did she do the right thing? Perhaps her actions did play a part in saving the world from full-blown Cold War. Or perhaps they didn't, and she destroyed one of the most powerful and anomalous assets that we ever harnessed in the history of our organization. I don't know. I don't think we ever will. I think, all things considered, that is for the better. Whew! Oh boy. That took us a bit of time to read, but I think that was pretty good. Because not only do we have like the Foundation basically creating an anomaly themselves, and one that's like super powerful, but then like we have the dilemma of like, well, of course, if you go make an anomaly out of somebody that you know, especially if they're like going to become psychic, then maybe, just maybe, they will see some shit that like will cause some more panic, more danger for the future. And if they ask you to kill them, do you do it? Is it safer to listen to what yeah, I end up getting bored making a Discord. Good, great. As I was saying, like, it's just such a tragic story because, like, not only is it the loved one that has to end up killing them, but it's also like now a question of like, was what Jocasta saw real? Did Jocasta actually interact with Rao, and did Rao tell her the truth? Was there actually some sort of like end of the world scenario coming up that she could prevent right now, here and now? Or was he just lying because maybe he was in immense pain, but it was like a super powerful being, so he didn't want to work for the Foundation anymore, so he just wanted to be released? We don't know. It is very interesting because we got the perspective of three different people. We got Franz, who kind of just like had an inkling of what Jocasta went through, but he's not fully like he's like, yeah, no, I had to say similar dreams and all that stuff, but we don't know if that's really truly the fact. Like Jocasta, who's like, okay, I had these dreams, Rao is suffering, he sees the future, and the future looks bleak if we leave him alive. I sadly have to kill him. And then we have the Foundation member at the end who's like saying, maybe Jocasta did the right thing, or maybe we just lost the biggest weapon that our Foundation could have ever owned. I mean, I'm not a Simon Glass fan. Is that a requirement? Is that something? I'm not really much. I don't really talk much on other Discord servers, but if you, I don't care. Well, I don't allow links on my Twitch, so you have to send it to me. You have to send me the invite differently. I want someone in there. It's a tragic story of a friend / lover becoming an all-powerful anomaly for the Foundation and potentially could bring disaster to the whole world. So the only one who can end this is the one that loves them the most. My Discord name is AfroFluff. It should just be AfroFluff. I don't think you don't need the numbers anymore, right? So it's like my Twitch, except with Twitch I have the AfroFluff, but just take away the part. I think the numbers are not okay. There you go.